The universe had heard stories of her. The whispers echoed in every corner of space, carried by the stars themselves. She was known as Verena, the alien vampire queen. For centuries, her name had been spoken in fear, a legend that spread across galaxies. No one dared to challenge her, for her power was said to be limitless. The vampire queen ruled a vast empire, a collection of star systems that trembled under her reign. Her army was unmatched. Her fleet of warships darkened the skies wherever they went. But it was not just her power that made her terrifying. It was the fear that her very presence brought. No one knew her true strength or her true intentions. She was a mystery wrapped in darkness, and to many, she was a monster, a force of nature meant to bring about the end of civilizations in the farthest reaches of the galaxy. Far from the heart of the vampire queen's empire lived a blind human, a man named Eli. He was known in his small settlement for his skills as a healer, a gentle soul who used his keen senses to help others. Despite being blind, Eli had an incredible gift for feeling the world around him, using his hands to sense the needs of those who came to him for help. He could tell when someone was in pain just by the way their body moved, and his touch was always a comfort to those in distress. Eli lived a quiet life, far from the grand wars and stories of distant planets. His world was simple, yet filled with meaning. His small house was nestled on a lush green hill, surrounded by the sounds of nature. He had never seen the stars or the planets beyond, but he could feel their presence. He had heard of Verena, the vampire queen, through the stories passed down by travelers who came to his world. But these were just tale stories told to warn people of the darkness in the galaxy. To Eli, the idea of a powerful queen was nothing more than fantasy, something far removed from his peaceful existence. One day, as the sun set and the stars began to shimmer above, the quiet of Eli's world was shattered. A strange energy filled the air, something different from the usual hum of the planet. Eli could feel it before he could hear it, the vibrations in the ground, the way the air seemed to thicken. It was as if something immense was approaching, something powerful and dangerous. The ground trembled beneath his feet, and his heart began to race. The stars above twinkled with an unfamiliar brightness, and the faint sound of engines began to rumble in the distance. Eli's instincts told him that something was coming, something that would change everything. But he had no idea that this would be the day that his life would cross paths with the most feared being in the universe. Verena's fleet had arrived. Her ships, large and intimidating, filled the skies above the small settlement. They blotted out the stars, casting long shadows over the peaceful land. The people of the settlement, unaware of the true nature of the ships, began to panic. Fear spread quickly, as the sight of the ships was enough to send anyone into a frenzy. It was said that when Verena's fleet arrived, nothing was ever the same again. Eli, still unaware of the arrival of the vampire queen, stood outside his home. He could hear the distant sounds of chaos, the hurried footsteps of people running. In all directions, he could feel the air growing heavier, filled with tension. He wasn't sure what was happening, but he sensed that something monumental was unfolding. He stepped forward, trying to listen more closely. But the noise around him was too overwhelming. As the panic grew, Verena's ship landed in the center of the settlement, sending a shockwave through the ground. The people scattered, but some were drawn toward the towering vessel, their curiosity getting the best of them. The queen's dark figure emerged from the ship, her long, flowing cloak moving in the wind like a shadow. Her eyes glowed with an eerie light, and her presence alone seemed to silence the world around her. She stood tall and regal, radiating an aura of power that made the air itself feel thick with dread. Eli, though blind, felt her presence before anyone else did. His body tensed, and his instincts told him that something was wrong. He reached out, feeling the vibrations in the air. It was as though the very fabric of the universe had shifted. He had no idea who or what this being was, but the sense of power surrounding her was undeniable. He was not afraid, though. Despite the fear in the air, Eli did not feel the same. His blindness had always allowed him to connect with the world in ways others could not. And in that moment, as the queen stood before him, Eli did not feel the fear that others did. Instead, he felt something different, a strange, unexpected pull. Verena looked around at the people who had gathered to witness her arrival. Her gaze fell on Eli, standing in the center of the chaos, unshaken and still. There was something about him that caught her attention, something that intrigued her. She had dealt with millions of people in her lifetime, but this human was different. She was used to fear, but this man did not fear her. He did not even seem to acknowledge her in the way others did. As she took a step forward, Eli could sense her presence drawing nearer. He instinctively reached out, his hands seeking to help, as he had done so many times before. Wasn't sure why, but he felt the need to make contact, to reach out to this strange person. His fingers brushed against her skin. The moment their skin made contact, a strange energy surged through them both. For Verena, it was like nothing she had ever experienced. She had been touched countless times, but this was different. The touch of this human was unlike anything she had ever felt before. It was gentle, yet it carried a weight that felt both foreign and familiar. Eli, on the other hand, was unaware of the effect his touch had on Verena. He only felt the warmth of her skin beneath his fingertips and the strange vibration that seemed to pulse through him. In that brief moment, the universe around them seemed to pause, as if everything had stopped to watch. For Verena, it was the beginning of something she couldn't yet understand. She had ruled for centuries, feared by all, but no one had ever dared to touch her like this. No one had ever shown her this kind of quiet respect, this kind of connection. And for Eli, it was the start of an adventure that would change everything. The touch that he had given so easily, without thinking, would set in motion a series of events that none of them could have predicted. The Vampire Queen was no longer just a myth to him. She was real, and now they were connected in a way that neither could explain. The touch lingered in the air. For Verena, the queen of the vampire empire, the brief contact had sent a ripple through her being. She had touched countless beings over the centuries, soldiers, allies, enemies, but none had made her feel something. This unfamiliar, the sensation of the blind human's hands upon her skin was gentle, yet there was a strange, powerful energy that surged through her at that moment. She could not explain it, and for the first time in centuries, she found herself questioning what she knew to be true. The people around her had no idea what had just happened. They were too consumed by their fear of the mighty vampire queen. Her fleet loomed above the settlement, casting long shadows over the land, while her followers remained still, waiting for her command. Her soldiers, trained to obey her every word, watched as she took a step back from Eli, her thoughts swirling. She was a ruler, a conqueror, yet she had never encountered a human like him before. Eli, on the other hand, did not sense the change that had occurred in Verena. He only felt the slight warmth of her skin, a comforting touch in the midst of the chaos. To him, she was just another person, just another being in need of help. His blindness had always given him the ability to connect with others on a deeper level than most could understand. He had never let fear cloud his actions, never judged a person by their appearance. And so, when he had reached out to touch Verena, it had been as natural as helping anyone else. Verena could see the confusion in Eli's face as he slowly withdrew his hand. I had not recognized her for who she truly was. He did not know that. She was the most feared being in the universe. He did not know that her name alone could send entire civilizations into hiding. But somehow, she found herself unable to look away from him. There was no fear in his eyes, only calm curiosity, and something deeper that she could not name. She turned her back to him, trying to shake the strange feeling that had overtaken her. She had come to this planet with a purpose. The ancient relic she sought was said to be hidden here on this very world. It was an artifact of unimaginable power, one that could grant its wielder eternal life. She needed it. She had waited for centuries to find it, to control it, and now it was within her grasp. Yet something about the blind human's touch made her question whether the power she sought was truly what she wanted. Her followers were waiting. They had not seen her hesitation, nor had they felt the strange energy that had passed between her and Eli. To them, Verena was their queen, their leader, and they waited for her orders without question. They had long since learned to obey her. every command to follow her lead without hesitation. But today something was different. Verena looked up at her fleet above her. Her warships hovered in the sky, their engines humming with power. They were ready to strike, ready to conquer, ready to fulfill her will. She had always been a master of control, of fear. She had built her empire by commanding respect through her power, through her cruelty, through her reputation. But now, standing in the presence of this human, she felt something shift inside her. She had ruled galaxies with an iron fist, and yet this man, who could not see, who had no reason to be brave, had made her question everything she thought she knew about herself. Eli could feel the tension in the air, though he did not understand its cause. The vibrations in the ground beneath his feet were different, now stronger, more urgent. He heard the voices of the people around him, their fear evident in every whisper, every hurried step. Yet he remained calm. He had always been the calm one, the one who listened before reacting, the one who helped when others turned away without saying a word. Eli began to move through the crowd, his hands outstretched as he sought to guide those who had lost their way. He felt the panic around him, the fear that gripped the hearts of the people, but he also felt something else, something he could not quite explain. There was a presence in the air, something powerful, something different. And for some reason, he knew it was tied to the woman he had touched. Verena watched him move through the crowd. Her sharp eyes, glowing with an unnatural light, followed every step he took. She could see the way the people moved around him, their fear fading as they were drawn to his calm presence. The humans around him seemed to gravitate toward Eli, as though they recognized something in him that they did not see in themselves. There was a quiet strength about him that made her uneasy. She had never seen anyone, not even a ruler of an empire, inspire such a reaction. Who is he? Verena whispered to herself, though her voice was lost in the wind, her second in command. A tall and imposing figure who stood by her side heard her and approached cautiously. "My queen, what are your orders?" Verena turned her gaze back. "To Eli, keep the settlement secure," she said softly, her voice filled with a strange uncertainty. "I will find the artifact myself." Her second-in-command bowed, knowing better than to question her orders. But even he could sense the change in her. He had served Verena for years, and he had never heard her speak with such hesitation. She was the vampire queen, cold, ruthless, unyielding. She did not question her choices, yet now she seemed different. The human had somehow altered her path, though neither of them understood how Eli, meanwhile, continued to guide the people, away from the chaos, leading them toward safety. His senses were sharper than most, and he could feel the underlying tension in the air, the weight of something larger than him. But he didn't know what it was. He had never feared anything before, and he wasn't about to start now. Instead, he focused on the task at hand, helping those in need. But as he moved through the crowd, he couldn't help but feel that something had changed. He couldn't see it, but he could feel it, the strange, unexplainable connection between him and the mysterious woman he had touched. He didn't know her name, but he felt that she was somehow important. And despite the fear surrounding her, he didn't feel afraid. The universe was trembling, but Eli didn't notice. He was simply doing what he had always done, offering his help, offering his strength, and guiding others through the darkness. Verena stood still, her eyes glowing with an eerie light as she watched the blind human move through the crowd. His calmness was a contrast to the chaos surrounding them. The sounds of panic filled the air, yet there he was, walking with a quiet confidence, guiding others to safety. There was something about him that caught her attention, something she could not ignore. But what was it? She could feel her curiosity growing, a feeling she hadn't allowed herself to experience in centuries. She was a queen, a ruler, feared by all, yet here she was, intrigued by a simple human who couldn't even see her. For the first time, she felt vulnerable and settled by her own emotions. The people around Eli continued to look to him for guidance, their fear easing with each step he took. He didn't seem like a hero, but to them, he was. His blindness had never been a hindrance. In fact, it was his strength. He had learned to rely on his other senses, his instincts, to navigate the world around him. He was an observer, a listener, And in that moment, he was exactly what these frightened people needed. But Eli did not know who Verena was. He only knew that there was something different about the presence in the air. It was as if the entire world had shifted, and for the briefest of moments, everything had come to a halt. His fingers had brushed against hers, and it had felt like the universe itself had paused. He didn't understand it, but he couldn't shake the feeling that this moment was important. Verena, too, was deep in thought, though she didn't show it. She had come to this world with a singular purpose, to find the ancient artifact that had been lost for centuries. It was said to have the power to grant eternal life, something Verena desperately sought. She had ruled for so long, conquered so many worlds, yet she knew that her time was running out. The artifact was the key to her survival, to her reign over the galaxy. And yet her plans had been interrupted by this human, this blind man, who had touched her in a way that no one else had. It was an accident, Verena thought. Just a simple touch. But why had it felt so ... different? She had touched countless beings before, but none had made her feel this way. She had ruled with fear, with power, but this human ally had shown her something she had not expected. He had shown her kindness, a kind of quiet strength that was unlike anything she had encountered before. Queen Verena, her second in command. A tall figure named Rillen approached cautiously. The artifact is close. Humans are still unaware of its true power. We should proceed as planned. Verena's gaze did not leave Eli. Yes, proceed, she said softly. But her voice lacked the usual sharpness it carried. Rillen didn't miss the change in her tone. He had served Verena for years, and he had never seen her hesitate like this. She had always been sure of her actions, her decisions, but now he could sense that something was different. Verena shook her head slightly, as if to clear the strange thoughts swirling in her mind. She had come here to find the artifact, to cement her place as the supreme ruler of the galaxy. Had no time for distractions. But then why was she so fixated on this human? Why had his touch affected her so profoundly? Rillen, sensing that his queen was not fully focused, stepped closer. My queen, the artifact is near. The humans will not stop us. Verena turned her attention back to Rillen, her eyes narrowing slightly. I know, she said, but we must be careful. The artifact is not just a weapon. It is something much older, something more powerful than even I can understand. Rillen nodded, but he couldn't help but notice the way Verena's gaze kept. Drifting back to Eli, shall I take care of him, my queen? He asked, his voice low and respectful. Verena stiffened. Leave him be. She turned her gaze back to Eli, watching as he continued to lead the people to safety. His movements were slow but purposeful, his face calm and focused. For a moment she allowed herself to simply observe him. Eli felt the vibrations of the world around him change again, this time more sharply. He knew something had happened, but he wasn't sure what. He couldn't explain it, but he could feel the eyes of the people on him. He could feel something more, something deep within him, pulling him toward Verena. He turned slightly, his hands outstretched, and in that moment, he felt it, the pull of the strange presence he had sensed earlier. He reached out, not thinking, just following the strange instinct that guided him. His fingers brushed against the air, and then he felt her presence again. She was close. Verena watched, her heart suddenly racing as Eli reached toward her. His blind eyes unseeing, but his hands steady. The moment his fingers brushed against her skin again, the energy between them shifted. This time, it was not just an accident. This time, it felt intentional. Eli's fingers brushed lightly against her arm, and the connection between them deepened. For a moment, it was as if the world around them ceased to exist. All that mattered was the touch, the strange energy flowing between them. Verena felt her power surge, but so did something else, something that was not part of her usual control. Something she could not fully grasp. Before she could react, Eli quickly pulled his hand back, not fully aware of the power he had just awakened. I didn't mean to, he murmured to himself. Da-da-da-da-da. His voice was calm, even as his heart raced. He didn't understand what had just happened, but something inside him told him that this was more than just a chance encounter. Verena stood frozen, her eyes wide in disbelief. She had never felt anything like this before. This human had touched her not just physically, but in a way that reached deep into her soul. It was a connection, one that she had never anticipated. Her centuries of power and control had not prepared her for this. Verena whispered to herself, "Why is this happening?" Rillen, who had watched the entire interaction from a distance, stepped forward again. "My queen, we must continue." The artifact is waiting, but Verena did not move. Mind was racing, and she could not shake the strange feeling that had taken hold of her. This human, this blind healer, had done something no one else had been able to do. He had reached her. In a way no one else ever could. The universe around them had changed, and Verena knew that nothing would ever be the same again. Verena stood still, her heart pounding in her chest, her mind racing. The touch of Eli's hand still lingered in her thoughts, a sensation she could not explain. It had been a simple accident, yet it had changed everything. She had never felt anything like it before. It was as if the universe itself had whispered a secret to her, secret she was not ready to hear. She had ruled for centuries, conquered countless worlds, and inspired fear in every corner of the galaxy. No one had ever dared to touch her without fear. No one had ever stood before her without trembling. And yet here was this human, blind and unknowing, who had touched her without hesitation. There had been no fear in his touch, only a strange calmness, a quiet strength that seemed to reach deeper than anything she had ever encountered. Eli, still unaware of the depth of the connection between them, moved through the crowd, helping the people around him. His actions were simple, his intentions clear. He was a healer, a man who had dedicated his life to helping others. And now, he was doing just that. His blindness did not hinder him. It only made him more in tune with the world around him. He could feel the fear, the panic, but he remained steady, guiding others to safety with a calm that seemed to spread to those around him. He did not understand why he was drawn to Verena, nor did he understand the strange pull he felt toward her. But something inside him told him that she was important. She had been so close. Her presence had felt powerful, different from anyone he had ever met. Verena watched from a distance, her thoughts clouded. She had always believed in power, in control. She had built her empire on fear, on her ability to dominate and bend others to her will. But now, standing here watching Eli interact with her people, she couldn't help but wonder if there was another way. Could there be more to life than conquest? Was it possible that the thing she had sought for so long, the artifact, was not the answer? Her second-in-command, Rillen, watched her closely. He had seen Verena in battle, had seen her strike down enemies without a second thought, had watched her command armies with ease. But now he saw something different. He saw the uncertainty in her eyes, the hesitation in her posture. He had never seen her like this before. "My queen," Rillen said, his voice cautious, "the artifact is close. We should not waste time. The longer we wait, the more dangerous it becomes. The humans are not our allies." Verena turned to face him, her expression unreadable. "I know, Rillen, but something is ... different. I can't explain it. I thought I knew what I wanted, what I needed. But now I'm not so sure." Rillen's eyes narrowed. "You are the queen, Verena. You know what must be done. The artifact is the key to your immortality. Without it, everything we've built, everything you've fought for, will be lost." Verena took a deep breath, trying to clear her thoughts. She had always known what was at stake. The artifact was the key to her eternal life, the one thing that could guarantee her rule for centuries to come. But now, as she stood on this planet, surrounded by humans, she felt something she had never felt before. "I am the queen," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "But I don't know if that's enough anymore." Rylan stepped forward, his tone firm. "The humans cannot be allowed to stand in your way, my queen. They are weak, fragile. You cannot allow them to stop you." Verena's gaze shifted back to Eli, who was still helping the people around him. His presence was like a calm in the storm. She had never seen anyone so unaffected by her power, so unaffected by the fear that she instilled in others. Eli's blind eyes were turned toward her, and for a moment, Their gazes met, though neither of them truly saw the other. It was a strange connection, one that neither of them understood. But in that moment, Verena felt something she had never experienced before. Peace. Eli, feeling the weight of the universe shift in that brief moment, continued his work, unaware of the conflict that was brewing inside the queen. He reached out to help another person, his hand steady and sure. But his thoughts kept drifting back to the strange woman, the one who had stood before him earlier. There was something about hers, something powerful, something that made him feel as though his life was somehow connected to hers. Verena took a step forward, unable to resist the pull any longer. She had come to this planet with a singular purpose: to find the artifact that would secure her place in the galaxy. But now, her heart was torn between the power she sought and the strange connection she felt with the human who had touched her. Her soldiers stood in the distance, waiting for her command, but they could sense the change in the air. They had always followed her without question, but now there was uncertainty in their ranks. They could feel it too, the strange energy that had shifted when Verena met Eli. The power that had always been in her control now seemed out of reach. Slipping through her fingers like sand, Rillan stepped up beside her. "What are your orders, my queen?" he asked quietly, though he already knew the answer. He had seen the way Verena looked at Eli, and he knew that something had shifted inside her. Verena turned to him, her eyes filled with conflict. "I'm not sure," she admitted, her voice soft. "I came here to claim the artifact, to solidify my rule, but now, I wonder if that's what I really need." Eli, unaware of the conversation taking place just a few steps away, continued to move through the settlement, offering his help to anyone in need. His blind eyes were trained on the world around him, and though he could not see Verena, he could feel the pull of her presence in the air. It was as if their fates were intertwined, though neither of them understood why. For the first time in her long life, Verena felt vulnerable. She had always been the one in control, the one who held power over others. But in the presence of this human, she felt small. She felt like a part of something greater than herself, and it frightened her. "I don't know what this is," she said softly, more to herself than to Rillan, "but I feel like I've been blind my whole life." Rillan watched her closely, his gaze filled with concern. "My queen, you are not blind. You are powerful. You are a ruler. You have nothing to fear." Verena shook her head slowly. "Maybe it's time I stopped ruling with fear." Rillan didn't respond. He knew that Verena's doubt was dangerous. The universe had never known a ruler like her, ruthless, unyielding, and determined to get what she wanted. But now, he wasn't sure what she wanted anymore. The world around them seemed to hold its breath, waiting for Verena to make a decision. The universe was watching, and its fate rested in the hands of one woman who had never been afraid to take what was hers. But now, standing on the edge of everything she had ever known, she faced a choice: to continue her reign of power, or to embrace the unknown, the strange connection that had been born between her and a blind human healer. The air around Verena grew thick with uncertainty. Her once clear path now seemed clouded, and for the first time in centuries, she felt something other than controlled out. She had always known what she wanted: power, immortality, and the domination of every corner of the galaxy. Yet, standing in the presence of this blind human named Eli, she found herself questioning the very foundation of her beliefs. The artifact, the relic she had traveled so far to find, was close within her reach, but something about Eli, the simple blind healer, had made her pause. She had never felt such an attraction to another being, not even to those who had once been her closest allies. What was it about him? Was it his calm nature, his unwavering certainty in a world filled with chaos? Or was it something deeper, something she could not understand? Lee, unaware of the turmoil unfolding within Verena, continued to help the people of the settlement. He was a simple man, a healer, but something inside him told him that his path was now intertwined with something far greater than he could ever have imagined. He didn't understand the power that surrounded Verena, nor did he understand the strange pull he felt toward her. But there was something undeniable in the way she had looked at him, something that made him feel as though he was meant to be a part of her story. The people around him looked to him for comfort, for reassurance, and Eli gave it to them without question. His hands, though blind, were steady, and his voice was calm. He led them to safety, away from the chaos that had descended upon their world. And as he moved through the crowd, his thoughts kept drifting back to Verena. He couldn't help it. There was something about her, something powerful, something that made him feel as though the universe itself was shifting. Verena watched him from a distance, her eyes narrowing with curiosity. She had come to this planet with a singular purpose, to claim the artifact and solidify her power. But now she found herself torn between that goal and the strange, unexplainable connection she felt toward Eli. She had always ruled with fear, had always used power to bend others to her will. But now, in the face of this human, she was beginning to wonder if there was more to life than conquest. Rillen, Verena's second-in-command, watched the exchange with growing concern. He had known his queen for years, had seen her strike down enemies without hesitation, had watched her command armies with unyielding authority. But now, he could see the change in her. She was no longer the ruthless queen she had once been. She was hesitating, questioning, and that uncertainty was dangerous. "My queen," Rillen said, stepping closer to her, "the artifact is near. We cannot afford to waste any more time. Humans are nothing. You must not let them stand in your way." Verena's gaze did not leave Eli. "I know," she replied softly. "But I cannot ignore what is happening. This human, Eli. He is unlike anyone I have ever met." Ryland's eyes narrowed. "My queen, you have spent centuries building your empire. One human cannot stand in your way. The artifact will give you the power you need. You must not let anything distract you." Verena turned to face him, her eyes filled with a strange intensity. "I am not distracted, Rillen. I am confused." Ryland's concern deepened. "Confused? This is not like you, my queen. You are strong. You have always known what you wanted." "I thought I did," Verena said, her voice soft. "But now, I am not so sure." Eli, meanwhile, had no idea what was happening between Verena and her second-in-command. He was focused on the people around him, guiding them through the chaos and offering comfort where he could. But his mind kept returning to the strange woman who had entered his life, the one who had made him feel a connection he couldn't explain. He moved toward her, his steps slow but determined. His fingers brushed the air as he navigated the world. Around him, relying on his other senses to guide him. As he reached Verena, he paused for a moment, sensing her presence more clearly than ever before. There was something about her, something that called to him. But what was it? Verena turned as Eli approached, her heart quickening in her chest. She had been watching him, feeling the pull between them, and now he was here, standing before her. Once again, their eyes met, though Eli's blind eyes could not see her. Yet in that moment, they both felt the connection between them grow stronger. "Eli," Verena said softly, her voice filled with something unfamiliar. "I don't know what is happening between us, but I can feel it. It's..." Eli tilted his head slightly, sensing her words more than hearing them. "I don't understand it either," he replied, his voice calm and steady. "But I know that there's something important happening here, something that I can't ignore." Verena's gaze softened, her heart conflicted. She had spent her life building her empire, conquering planets, and bending others to her will. But now, standing before this man, she felt something she had never felt before, something human, something real. "I came here to take the artifact," Verena said, her voice quiet, "to claim it for myself, to ensure my rule. But now I wonder if that is enough. Is power all there is? Is that the reason? I have spent so long fighting for control." Eli's hand, still outstretched, hovered between them. "I can't give you answers," he said, his voice filled with honesty. "But I can help you find another way. Maybe there's more to this than what we've been taught." Verena stared at him, her mind racing. She had never known someone like Eli. He was not afraid of her, nor was he intimidated by her power. He saw her, not as a queen, but as a person, someone who was lost and searching for something more. I've spent centuries searching for power, Verena said softly, her voice tinged with regret. But I don't know if that is what I truly need. Eli reached out and touched her arm, his fingers brushing against her skin. This time, the connection between them was stronger, more intense. Verena could feel the warmth of his touch, the steadiness of his presence, and for the first time in her life, she felt something she had never expected: peace. Maybe it's time to stop searching for power, Eli said, his voice quiet but sure. Maybe it's time to find something else. Verena's heart fluttered in her chest, her mind torn between the past she had known and the uncertain future that lay before her. She had always been the one in control, the one who made the decisions. But now, standing before Eli, she felt as though she was being pulled in a new direction. I don't know what the future holds, Verena whispered, her voice trembling. But maybe ... maybe I'm ready to find out. And in that moment, Verena made a choice. She would stop seeking power. She would stop ruling with fear. Instead, she would follow the path that Eli had shown her, a path that was uncertain, but one that held the promise of something more. The air felt different now. The tension that had once gripped the planet had begun to fade, replaced by an unfamiliar sense of calm. People were still afraid, but not in the same way. They had seen something shift, something that none of them had expected. They had seen the Queen, the most feared being in the galaxy, change. Verena stood at the edge of the settlement, looking out over the horizon. The sky was darkening, the stars beginning to twinkle. She had come here to claim the artifact, to strengthen her rule. But now, standing in the midst of the people she had once considered beneath her, she felt a strange weight in her chest, a weight she could not explain. Eli stood beside her, his presence steady, his blind eyes turned toward the stars. He could not see them, but he could feel them, the way they shimmered in the cool night air. There was something about the quiet of the night that felt like a promise, like the world was holding its breath, waiting for something. For the first time, Verena felt the pull of the stars, not as a conqueror, but as a part of something greater. She had ruled with an iron fist, had brought entire civilizations to their knees. But now, she was beginning to understand something she had never known. Before there was more to life than power, there was more to existence than domination. What happens now? Verena asked, her voice softer than it had ever been. She didn't know who she was asking, Ellie, herself or the universe itself. It didn't matter. The question had been in her heart for a long time. And now, for the first time, she was ready to hear the answer. Eli turned to her, his face calm, his voice steady. What happens next is up to you. We all have choices. The world can be different. If we want it to be, Verena felt a strange warmth in her chest. She had spent so many years thinking she had to control everything, thinking that she had to be the one to decide what was best for everyone. But now, she realized, the world didn't need one person to rule it. It needed people to work together, to understand each other, to help one another. She had come to this planet as a conqueror. But now, standing beside Eli, she realized that she didn't need to conquer. She didn't need to rule with fear. She didn't need to be the powerful queen that everyone feared. She could be something else. I never thought this was possible, Verena said quietly, looking at the stars. I spent so long thinking. I needed power, thinking I needed to be feared. But now I see that, maybe I was wrong. Eli smiled softly, his blind eyes still focused on the stars. We all make mistakes, he said. Important thing is that we learn from them. Verena turned to him, her gaze softening. For the first time, she saw him not as a human, not as someone weak and fragile, but as someone who understood something deeper than anyone she had ever met. He had shown her a new way, a new path that she had never considered. She had been a queen, a ruler, but now she was something else. She was a person. I don't know what to do next, Verena admitted. I don't know how to change everything. But I think I want to try. Eli placed a hand gently on her arm. You don't have to do it alone. We can do this together. The words echoed in Verena's mind. Together, she had never considered the idea of working together with others. She had always been alone at the top, ruling from a place of solitude. But now she understood. True power did not come from fear or control. It came from understanding, from connection, from helping one another. She turned to face him, her eyes soft and full of wonder. "Thank you," she said, her voice filled with gratitude. "You've given me more than I ever expected." Eli smiled again. "It's not me, it's you. You just needed to see it." For the first time, Verena allowed herself to believe that there was more to life than power. She had spent so long chasing after something that she thought would fulfill her, but now she understood that what she had been searching for all along had been right in front of her. It was the ability to change, to grow, and to make the world a better place. It's not through force, but through kindness and understanding. The people of the settlement had begun to gather around them, unsure of what had just happened. They had watched. As the most feared queen in the galaxy had stood there beside a blind human man in silence, they had witnessed a change, but they didn't understand it. They didn't need to. What mattered was that Verena, the vampire queen, was no longer a symbol of fear. She was something else now, something new. Verena turned to the people who had once been so afraid of her. They stood there looking at her with wide eyes, unsure of what to expect. But instead of demanding their submission, Verena simply smiled at them. "I am not here to rule you," she said, her voice carrying over the crowd. "I am here to work with you, to help you. We can all be a part of something better, together." The people watched her in silence for a long moment. Then, slowly, they began to nod. It was not a loud agreement, but a quiet one, a simple acknowledgement that something had changed. And for the first time, Verena felt something she had never felt before, hope. Eli stood beside her, his hand resting on her shoulder. "We can make this work," he said softly. "Together." And with that, Verena knew that the future was not something to be feared. It was something to be shaped, something to be built with understanding and care. She had come to this world as a conqueror, but now she would leave as something different, someone who had learned that true power came not from fear, but from connection.